world in all its brokenness needs to be repaired. That was a core part of my Jewish upbringing, and when I come to el-Kheir, when I come to Hebron, when I come to Susia, I see brokenness forced upon the residents by the government of Israel, and I think that I have a role in helping to repair it.
We have three pillars that ground our organizational work. The first is that we are all unequivocally and actively opposed to the occupation of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. The second is that we're all committed to using nonviolent activism as a means to end the occupation. And we all believe in and support a future political situation that is based on equality of Palestinians and Israelis and honors and recognizes the full shared humanity of Palestinians and Israelis.
El-Kheir, for example, we're planting 5,000 zatar plants in the next few months on a strip of land right next to Carmel, an illegal Israeli settlement built directly adjacent to the village. Without planting this land, without working this land, it remains much more vulnerable to settler takeover or military appropriation. This is a fine example of an action that Palestinians have requested and need our solidarity and support in actualizing.
Why?
If they do it themselves, the army is much more likely to arrive and stop all efforts at work.
I identified for almost my entire life until 10 years ago as a Zionist, and Zionism was at the center of my understanding of Judaism, and it was a narrative that was very sacred to me. And I've only come around relatively recently in my life to understanding at great cost. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with it, spiritually speaking, and as a Jew and as a human being, that I believe that Zionism has really colonized Judaism.
My mother's Israeli, and I grew up coming here a lot, and I knew a fair deal about the conflict and about Israel's history, but I happened to be here to see my family during the Gaza War of 2014, so just 2 years ago, and it was shocking to see rockets come down into southern Israel and other parts of Israel. My family's from Beersheba, but it was also much more shocking to see the Palestinian death toll. You know, you thought it was going to stay at 100 or 200, like that wasn't bad enough, but it kept climbing, and I think that really shook up my reality.
And I think part of what's important in this campaign of Occupation is Not My Judaism is making clear that Torah or Judaism as a whole is not in support of occupation, and that it should not be being carried out in the name of us as Jews.
תושבי סוסיה נגרשו מכפר שלהם, הצבא מנסה לפנות כפרים אלה משנת 70 עד היום כל פעם מנסה, ובאחרונה מנסים יותר לגרש את הכפרים אלה.
كانوا مبسوطين يعني ما فيش أي إشي، بس لما أجى الاحتلال وأجوا وصاروا يعني يطلقوا عليهم نار وقذائف وإنه اطلعوا أخذوا الأرض، وحتى أخذوا الشباب أسروهم وظلوا النساء لحالهم هنا، بعدين طروهم برا. الحين الناس ما طلعوش عيط البلد.
זה אומר כאילו הכפר הזה היה לכולם, היה היום זמן הרומנים וזמן הכנענים והיהודים, כולם היו, איך אומרים, דור אחרי דור.
انهم عاشوا هنا واشتغلوا بهاي الارض وزرعوها وبدمهم يعني وتعبوا فيها وارضعونا فيها وربونا فيها، اللي هم الجيل الاكبر عاشوا فيه يعني الاربعينات والخمسينيات عاشوا هنا. بس الحمد رب العالمين يعني احنا برضو لو بتنفس هوا القريه يعني في عندك اشياء شائكه بتفصلنا عن الخط وعن مكان سكننا، بس انه احنا بنتنفس الهواء بضل يعني اشي اهون من اشي، يعني انه نتنفس هواء سوسي ولا انه نطلع مثلا من سوسيا بالمره. بس الوضع صعب للغايه، انه احنا هي ارضنا وحجرنا وبيوتنا قديمه، ابار المي موجوده يعني.
الغارة بقت جوا تقطع جوا هيك.
لو سمحت، هذا بيتك؟
هذا بيت.
ممكن
هذه جبت 3 هنا في قطورها.
3 أولاد. الحمد لله. وكيف كان هالحياة هون؟
والله الحياة بقت كويسة، ولو أننا بنعذب مع الحلال وبنتعب ونشقى فيش أحسن منها بقت.
وكهوف يعني في الشتاء بكون دفين، وفي الصيف براد، مش زي الخيام شوب وفي الشتاء برد. واسمك أحلام؟
أنا اسمي أحلام نواجع.
عندك أحلام لسوسيا؟
عندي أحلام كبيرة في سوسيا، إنه أشوف سوسيا غير، أشوف سوسيا فيها مدارس كثير من ناحية التعليم. أنا كملت تعليمي، كنت أنزل على جامعات يا البلد، بس أنا كنت بنفس سوسيا وحاليا بعلم في سوسيا كمان. فإنه رسالتي تكون أقوى، إنه إحنا صح بنربي الماشي بنربي الأغنام، بس إحنا برضو مجتمع مثقف، مجتمع متحضر متعلم أيضا، وبدنا نعلم أولادنا كمان، بدنا كمان نفهمهم إنه هاي الأرض إلنا كمان.
فيش ولا إشي على هالفلسطينيين؟
فيش، هذا كله حاطين بسبب بيوت فلسطينية، هذا
على حياة عربي ولا؟
لا، هذا حاطينه إنه نسبوه إشي إسرائيلي. هاي إنه نسبينه إشي نسبوه لإلهم.
I see a Palestinian child who's not allowed to cross the street from his family home to another home across the street because it's a Jews-only street. It reminds me of my father facing segregation in the Deep South in the 1920s and 30s, and him being refused access to buildings and areas that were whites only. And when I see families like these wonderful families here in Susia who've been driven off their land, it reminds me of the history of sundown towns in the United States and African American families who were driven out of towns like Rosewood and who were forced to leave their homes in the middle of the night when police came and drove them out and burned out their homes. So it feels familiar in a very sad and tragic way. So this is a deeply personal experience for me, both as an African American and as a Jew.
Privilege, if violence were to happen towards us, it would be received by the wider world in a different way than violence for Palestinians is currently being perceived.
So how does all of this play into the component of Jewish solidarity activists bringing this work back to our home communities, right? Because this is the thinking ahead, which we don't have to do too much of right now.
Lives Matter movement and Justice for Palestine movement. Police officers in Chicago get training from police officers in Israel on how to pacify native populations. And as I said, this whole history of segregation, of being treated differently, of not having your property rights respected is something that I think African Americans and Palestinians sadly have in common. I wish the Jews were more attached to the values that Moses stood for rather than the rocks that he stood on.